Alright, settle in. This isn't a recap. It's an autopsy, a weather report, and a quiet warning written in the margins. This is a case study of why Me and Thee didn't just succeed, but detonated, why it became GMMTV's most efficient social media engine in record time, why the cast started pulling attention from corners of the internet that don't usually show up for Thai BL, and why so many people feel that low-grade ache of, this is consuming me and I don't know how to step back without losing something. No hype, no screaming, just pressure, the kind that builds because it's accurate. 1. The strange speed of recognition. Most shows grow the way vines do. Slowly, one platform at a time. One demographic first, then a bleed outward. Me and Thee didn't grow like that. It behaved more like a face recognition system. People didn't discover it. They recognized it. Within days, timelines weren't saying, this show is good. They were saying things like, this feels familiar but sharper. I don't know why this is hitting. I thought I was over this genre. Those are tells. That language appears when a piece of media doesn't just entertain, it activates a stored emotional template. Something viewers didn't know they were waiting for, but instantly know when it arrives. The speed wasn't marketing velocity. It was emotional matching. 2. The premise wasn't new. The positioning was surgical. On paper, Me and Thee looks almost modest. No wild genre bend. No high-concept sci-fi hook. No shock value scandal baked into the logline. And that's exactly why it worked. GMMTV didn't sell it as an event. They framed it as inevitable. The messaging wasn't, watch this now. It was, this exists, and you're already late. Trailers lingered instead of punched. Promos emphasized glances, not plot. Silence was allowed where other shows over-explain. That restraint did something dangerous. It invited projection. Fans weren't told what to feel. They filled in the gaps themselves. And when people co-author an emotional experience, they defend it like it's theirs. 3. The central dynamic triggered a very specific ache. Here's where the machine really starts humming. Me and Thee doesn't revolve around chemistry in the flashy sense. It revolves around proximity tension, two people emotionally orbiting each other just close enough to feel the gravity. This matters because a huge portion of the audience isn't chasing romance. They're chasing almost understood, almost chosen, almost seen, but not quite safe yet. The show weapon hooking into the fear of mistiming, the dread of saying the wrong thing too late, the grief of relationships that felt unfinished rather than broken. That's not escapism, that's recognition therapy, and it explains why people didn't just binge it, they sat with it, replayed scenes, paused on micro-expressions, wrote threads that read like personal confessions disguised as analysis. 4. Social media didn't amplify the show. The show instructed social media. This is the part people underestimate. Me and Thee didn't trend because fans posted more. It trended because the content architecture rewarded obsession. Scenes were built to fracture cleanly into 7-second reaction clips, loopable eye contact, lines that read differently out of context, silence that invited captioning. Every episode contained extractable emotional units. That's why TikTok edits felt inevitable instead of forced. Why Twitter threads multiplied without coordination. Why Instagram comments turned into micro-communities. The show wasn't just watched. It was reprocessed. And GMMTV noticed early. Instead of trying to control the narrative, they did something smarter. They fed the fragments. Behind-the-scenes content mirrored fan-edit pacing. Cast interviews referenced viral moments without explaining them. Official accounts left negative space instead of clarifying. The fandom wasn't being guided. It was being respected, which is rare, and addictive. 5. The cast didn't arrive famous. They arrived legible. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Star power didn't pull the internet in. Legibility did. Each major cast member carried a clear, readable energy that slotted into existing internet archetypes. The emotionally restrained one people project longing onto. The expressive one fans protect instinctively. The quiet observer who becomes a self-insert. The chaos-adjacent presence who destabilizes scenes just enough. No one felt overproduced. No one felt unreachable. People didn't ask, who are they? They asked, why do I already know this type? That's why attention came from everywhere. BL fans who recognized the structure. K-drama viewers who recognize the pacing. Casual TikTok users who recognize the vibe. Writers, editors, and artists who recognize the craft. The cast didn't just attract fans. They activated identities. And once someone attaches a piece of themselves to a character or dynamic, disengaging feels like erasing a part of their own emotional map. 6. The fandom formed around observation, not noise. Loud fandoms burn hot and fast. Me and Thee developed something quieter, and far more durable. Its core fans are watchers. People who notice patterns, who screenshot micro changes, who track how a look in episode 3 reframes a line in episode 8. This creates a subtle status hierarchy. Not, who screams the loudest, but, who sees the most. Threads that begin with, I might be reaching but, usually aren't reaching. And here's the pressure point. Once a fandom trains itself to observe deeply, missing content feels costly. Skip an episode and you miss context. Miss a clip and you miss a reference. Miss a week and the conversation has moved on without you. That's not manufactured FOMO. That's structural. 7. Why it feels like it's eating you alive. This reaction keeps showing up for a reason. Me and Thee doesn't overwhelm through excess. It overwhelms through intimacy density. Every interaction carries unspoken stakes, deferred resolution, emotional ambiguity that demands interpretation. Your brain doesn't get closure cues, so it keeps working. People say they're exhausted, but they keep watching interviews. They say they need distance, but they rewatch scenes, just once more. They joke about being unwell, but there's an edge under the humor. What's actually happening is emotional cognitive load. The show asks you to hold too many feelings at once. Hope and dread, tenderness and restraint, certainty and delay, and it never tells you which one wins. That's why stepping away feels like loss. Not because the show is loud, but because it feels unfinished without you. 8. GMMTV's quiet masterstroke, letting it breathe. This could have been ruined. Easily. An aggressive promo push, overexposure of the leads, forced fanservice, explaining the magic instead of letting it remain partially hidden. Instead, GMMTV practiced strategic restraint. Appearances were spaced. Content drops felt earned, not constant. Silences weren't patched over. That creates scarcity, not of access, but of meaning. When something doesn't fully explain itself, people return to it. And every return deepens attachment. 9. The status layer no one talks about. There's a quiet social signal embedded in being early and perceptive about Me and Thee. Not loud bragging, not gatekeeping, just subtle recognition, knowing the right scenes, referencing the right moment, understanding why that line matters more than the obvious one. It creates a soft divide. Those who watched, and those who noticed. Once someone crosses that line, going back to passive consumption feels thin. And that's the real urgency. Not, watch before it ends. But, notice before it passes you by. 10. Why waiting actually costs something. This is the part people feel but don't articulate. Waiting doesn't mean you miss plot. It means you miss the collective realization moment, the early interpretations before consensus calcifies, the intimacy of discovering meaning alongside others, the sense of being inside the phenomenon instead of studying it later. Cultural moments harden fast. What starts fluid becomes fixed. What was once alive becomes summarized. And Me and Thee is still in its alive phase. That's why it feels urgent without being loud. Why people feel pulled instead of pushed. Because some experiences aren't just about consumption. They're about timing. Closing thought. Me and Thee didn't blow up because it tried to dominate the internet. It listened to it. It trusted the audience's intelligence. It respected silence. It allowed meaning to accumulate rather than announce itself. That's why it feels like a slow burn and a wildfire at the same time. And that's why people who hesitate don't just fear missing a show. They fear missing the version of themselves who would have been there when it mattered. The strange thing about cultural gravity is that you don't feel it pulling. Until you try to step away and realize how much weight you were already holding.